Good afternoon, I'm Anthony Lugg with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Up first this afternoon, the government has intensified the clampdown on children's homes which continue to breach safety standards and licensing requirements. State Minister in the Ministry of Youth, Robert Morgan, has revealed that a children's home has been shut down because of a failure to meet standards. Mr. Morgan says other facilities are on the radar. Sandy Williams reports.
This development follows increased scrutiny on the operations of children's homes in the wake of disturbing incidents such as the fire which destroyed the Clifton Boys Home in 2017, the Walker's Place of Safety in 2018, and the Jamaican National Children's Home in Papine St. Andrew in 2019. Mr. Morgan had warned that increased monitoring was coming in the areas of fire safety, meal plans for children, health inspections, and proper employment records for staff. While not disclosing the name of the facility which was ordered closed, Mr. Morgan has warned that the authorities will continue enforcement activities for those which remain resistant to change.
My approach is that if it is that homes are consistently unwilling to be compliant with the regulations in terms of licensing, in terms of acquiescing to what is required by the government, then we're going to have to close them. We have already closed one home, and we're looking at other homes who are not compliant to see can we bring them on board, and if we cannot bring them on board, we are not unwilling to close them. Because at the end of the day, the interest of the government and the interest of the ministry is not just to have children's homes, but to have homes that are fulfilling the requirements outlined by the legislation, which is the CCPA. And if it is that these homes are not acquiescing to these requirements, then we have no choice but to say to them, we are very sorry, but we're going to have to close down your home.
Mr. Morgan says strong action will be taken against the operators of children's home where violations are discovered.
We have to start enforcing, and we have at the ministry, but we need to extend it publicly, a zero-tolerance approach to abuse in the children's homes, and also increase the level of accountability that exists in the children's homes. My philosophy is that if a child becomes engaged with the government as a child needing care and protection, then that child needs to have the best care.
Meanwhile, Mr. Morgan says the majority of children's homes have been adjusting and becoming compliant with regulations.
We have to start enforcing, and we have at the ministry, but we need to extend it publicly, a zero-tolerance approach to abuse in the children's homes, and also increase the level of accountability that exists in the children's homes. My philosophy is that if a child becomes engaged with the government as a child needing care and protection, then that child needs to have the best care.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
The government is yet to provide a date as to when people living on the streets will be vaccinated. This, as close to 140,000 Jamaicans have already received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. But the homeless and the mentally ill are still awaiting their first dose. Cody and Barrett reports.
As at April 28, over 139,000 Jamaicans have already received their first shot of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. And while those people are getting ready to take up their second dose, at least one group is facing hard times even getting tested for the deadly disease. An estimated 2,000 homeless people are living on the streets, with Kingston alone accounting for 700, some of which are hoping for the chance to take the jab.
So to prevent me from getting it. Yeah. So you know, if you get it, you're all right. You can go 2 and 4 free without problem there. The mask or so, you know, you can move up and down. Or you can use the mask, you know, your vaccine, you know, say all right.
I wouldn't know if I have the virus or not. So something would be beneficial for I. I'm not afraid of no test. More when I fit in the society amongst people.
And the situation is similar out west in Montego Bay. But Acting Medical Officer of Health for St. James, Dr. Tanika Bailey-Small, says her team is putting plans in place to change that.
For mental health we have the plans for them to come in for those who fit the age criteria, etc. are able to be brought in by their caretakers for their vaccines, and for those who are in different institutions, then we may make contact with them, and so we can arrange for their vaccination.
With several vaccines on the market, the Johnson & Johnson shot could be the preferred choice for the homeless and those that are mentally ill because it's a single dose. Chairman of the National Health Fund, Howard Mitchell, says Jamaica continues to face an uphill task in trying to source the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. So far, Jamaica has only received the AstraZeneca vaccine, which requires 2 doses.
Ideally, it would be good for them to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, for example, which is 1 shot. But the reality of it is the AstraZeneca is what we have available, and the 2 dose, and which requires 2 dose. And so we'll now have to make the arrangements to make sure once they get their first dose to do the necessary follow-up so they will receive their second dose.
She further explains that each patient will be properly screened before the procedures are carried out.
So if it is that when we do our interviews and we realize that there may be reasons for them not being able to get the vaccine at that point in time, then we would delay giving. So all persons actually go through a screening process.
Cody Ann Barrett, TVJ News.
Despite operational adjustments to include increased technology use and reduced visitation, the island's prison system is still struggling with COVID-19. The issue is exacerbated as some correctional officers who go in and out of these facilities daily have not been receptive to the vaccination. Herman Green has that story.
0 visits for more than a year. Classrooms and worship areas being used for isolation and quarantine. Those are some of the drastic measures being employed by the Department of Correctional Services, DCS, in an attempt to reduce COVID-19 cases among the prison population.
We have made Zoom and telephone lines available to our prisoners. We've even made digital counseling available to our inmates, right? But we have to be clear. These things go against the cultural norms of how correctional institutions work globally.
Despite the efforts, there have been multiple cases with at least 5 deaths among the prison population. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of National Security, Matthew Samuda, confirmed 2 inmates and 3 correctional officers passed because of COVID-19 related issues. It's why the minister is now depending on vaccination take-up to help reduce infections. The aim? Inoculating at least 70% of the prison population in order to achieve herd immunity inside. But there's the issue of vaccine hesitancy, especially among correctional officers who leave and return to the facility working on shifts.
I hope that none of them are taking that strength and that fearlessness that they bring to their job and assuming that they can take on COVID the same way. COVID is a killer, and all I would do is I would ask that you consider your own life, you consider your family's life, and you consider the lives of those who you indeed manage and keep in custody. It is in all of our interest for us to get to herd immunity, and the only way we're going to get there is by persons taking the vaccine. So, quite frankly, I'm begging, I'm pleading, and we're hoping that persons will do so that we reduce at least one area of our society quickly from the risk list.
Mr. Samuda says the vulnerable are again being given priority for vaccination. Herman Green, TVJ News.
Deaths from COVID-19 have surpassed the 800 mark. 3 deaths were recorded from the virus, bringing the death toll to 801. Their ages range from 48 to 88 years. 1 each from Portland, Kingston and St. Andrew, and Manchester. 90 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded on Thursday from 863 tests. This pushes the total confirmed cases to 46,428. The positivity rate is now 10.1%. Meanwhile, 231 persons remain in hospital. 21 are critically ill. There are currently 23,267 active cases. And it's now time for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back. Continuing the news. Almost a week after the horrid incident in which a fisherman lost his hand and subsequently his life, fisherfolk in Savannah Lamar, Westmoreland are still trying to come to grips with the way their colleague died. Javon Keys reports.
Guys, what I see happen, I can't believe. I see doggy without hand. I couldn't look upon doggy when time I see that happen.
A close friend of 54-year-old Fitzroy Haywood, also known as Doggy, who lost his life following a shark attack in Westmoreland last Saturday. The men were at sea attending to their catch when the incident happened. A fisherman who gave his name as Chalky said he was alerted of the incident by other fishermen. He recounted his journey from sea with his friend.
On the journey coming in, I could have said to myself, say, doggy gonna die. But doggy hand gone way up in my arm. Way up in my arm, his hand cut off. Nobody couldn't get fit tight at the part to stop the blood from bleed.
Chalky says he believes that Mr. Haywood died before reaching hospital based on the extent of the shark attack. The following day, fishermen located and killed the shark they believe attacked and bit off a portion of Mr. Haywood's hand. This was confirmed by the police. In a video too graphic to be shown on air, the shark's abdomen was cut open on Sunday and parts of the fisherman's hand were discovered inside. In the meantime, this charge of fisherfolk from Chalky.
We have to just look out our own eye right now. It's a very serious thing. And we can't laugh about them something here.
Former president of the Savannah Lamar Fisherfolk Council, Winston Gray, is appealing to the relevant authorities to provide some assistance in dealing with sharks which are hindering them from their livelihoods. Javon Keys, TVJ News.
Traffic was yesterday afternoon halted along the Rio Nuevo Main Road in St. Mary following a motor vehicle crash which saw a truck laden with marl overturning, injuring almost 10 people. O'Shane Masters has the details.
Bloodstains and mangled vehicles tell only part of what transpired along the Rio Nuevo Main Road in St. Mary yesterday afternoon. TVJ News understands that this truck, laden with marl, was heading towards Orcharius when it overturned on 3 vehicles heading in the opposite direction. It's not clear what caused the truck to overturn. However, this Suzuki Vitara bore the brunt of the impact as seen in this video by our news team. We are not certain at this time if there were any serious injuries or casualties from the incident, but our news team was told that 7 people were transported to hospital yesterday. In the meantime, traffic was halted for several minutes as members from the Jamaica Fire Brigade worked to cover the oil spillage from the accident. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The Jamaican Narcotics Police and their counterparts in Antigua are trying to identify the drug traffickers behind a shipment of ganja seized in Antigua last week. The illicit drug, which weighed nearly 300 pounds, was found hidden in a bus shipped from Jamaica. Now, according to the Antiguan police force, 275 pounds of ganja valued at over $1 million was seized. A senior narcotics officer told our news center that collaboration between Jamaican and the Antiguan police led to the interception of the shipment. No one has been arrested in connection with the find. And it's now time for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
In the world of business, Scotiabank says another 6 of its locations island-wide will go digital this month as fewer customers do transactions in branch. The bank says with the COVID pandemic, as of January, only 5% of transactions were done in physical branches, with the rest done either at ATMs or point-of-sale machines. The bank says the continued move towards digital branches does not mean it will do away with cash transactions, but customers can do these transactions at smart machines in each branch. The Jamaica Stock Exchange is seeing more activities in terms of listings, with a second set of securities listed yesterday on its JSE private market. Yesterday's listings, valued at a little over $2 billion, was done by Colossal Holdings IC, which is an investment entity created by its Barbados-based parent company, Oregon, to raise funds and purchase JMMB preference shares. It was the 7th listing on the exchange for the year and the 4th on the private market, which was launched in January. The Wasinko Group released results showing its profit for the 3 months January to March rose 16% to $672 million. The profit growth came as the company contained costs as revenues dipped 6% to $7.6 billion. The decline in revenues was due mainly to the impact of curfew measures on distribution, but Wasinko said a bigger fallout was stymied by a 50% growth in export in the quarter. And in the financial week, Supreme Ventures and Main Event team up to create new production company. That's it for the Business Minute this week. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
In news overseas, the U.S. appears to be turning the corner in the battle against COVID-19. Case numbers are down, and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, predicts they'll drop even further this summer. More from the CNN.
The U.S. appears to be turning the tide in this pandemic. Coronavirus cases are at a 7-month low. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention forecasts a sharp decline in deaths over the next 4 weeks.
The sooner we get more and more people vaccinated, the sooner we will all get back to normal.
Almost 1 in 3 Americans is now fully vaccinated.
I was hesitant mostly because the 2 vaccines that were available at the time were the Myrna vaccines, and they were terribly new.
Republicans, the political group with the highest vaccine hesitancy, are warming up to rolling up their sleeve. A Kaiser Family Foundation survey found 55% of Republicans have or intend to get a COVID-19 vaccine, up 9% from March. Meanwhile, the country continues with easing restrictions as cases decline. Entertainment is making a comeback. In New York, Broadway tickets are now on sale for September. Walt Disney World and SeaWorld both ditching temperature checks for guests and staff. In a road to normalcy, there's growing talk about booster shots.
When exactly and how frequently this needs to be, this is something which we have to extract from emerging data.
Vaccine maker Moderna says a 3rd shot fires up the immune system against 2 concerning coronavirus variants.
And to news in sports now, Jamaican diver Yona Knight Wisdom on Wednesday qualified for this summer's Tokyo Olympic Games. Now, Knight Wisdom copped the historic feat following his performance at the FINA Diving World Cup in Japan.
After becoming only the first diver and first man to qualify for the Olympic Games in diving for Jamaica, Knight Wisdom further etched his name in the history books when on Wednesday he became the first Jamaican diver to make it to back-to-back games. The 6-footer finished 13th overall in the final of the 3-meter springboard, accumulating 405.2 points at the FINA Diving World Cup in Japan. After seeing last year's Olympic Games postponed and uncertainty on whether the Diving World Cup would be held, Knight Wisdom has described the achievement as a huge win.
Going into lockdown, having to spend about 4 months training from my really small flat in Edinburgh, doing somersaults in the flat and having to bend my arms on certain ones because if I had straightened them, I'd touch the roof. Finding ways to stay fit, stay motivated, stay healthy, even being locked basically at home, no pools training. It was a real psychological and physical challenge for me and the rest of my team.
The 25-year-old, who finished 14th overall out of 29 competitors in Rio in 2016, is now focused on creating more history this summer.
The journey continues, the journey of representing Jamaica in a sport like diving, the journey of trying to leave a legacy behind me, the journey of trying to create a new sport pretty much in Jamaica, create a new culture. The journey can continue with success and with even more hope for more success in the future, because I still don't think I've reached my peak. There's still more to come from me.
And the president of the Aquatics Sports Association of Jamaica, Martin Lynn, reacted to Knight Wisdom's historic feat.
I think that he will be a lot more relaxed. He certainly will be a lot more confident in terms of where his positions will be. He's going in there with confidence and determination. In addition to that, his diving scores have increased dramatically, and when he's even at a comfortable level now, he's scoring over 400 points easily. That is an achievement a lot of divers would like to get to. Yona is now comfortable in that region and will definitely improve.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Anthony Lugg. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.